That'd be interesting. To coin a phrase.
Well, we could all vote for him.
Yeah, yeah.
He's got a good chance of getting through then.
Maybe that's what connected digital world means.
That's
something
what
to
he's
do,
doing.
something to do with the digits, waving those digits in the air.
Well, he has got those jazz hands.
Yep, definitely got those jazz hands.
It's a good job he's not online, really, isn't it? Right, well, I started everything recording off now, so Rich said the horror, the horror. We should talk about spandex and jazz hands and Andrew.
No, we certainly shouldn't.
Right, well, I'm sure he'll, if he gets the message, he'll join in. If he can't, and we can carry on regardless. So we'll get started.
Okay.
Guy, welcome back.
As ever, good to be here.
Yes, and we're waiting with bated breath to see whether Andrew can join us. There's various rumours that he broke the M4. He's in training to be a professional on Strictly Come Dancing, and some other musical theatre type stuff.
Or he's just in mourning for WHS.
There is a chance of that. Like I said before, I have seen him tearful a few times recently, and I think that's what he was getting upset about.
Yeah. Well, it is a tragedy.
Yes, it is. So we're going to be talking about that shortly. We'll hang on to see whether Andrew does join us, because there's Microsoft have announced the SKUs for Windows Server 2012, and there's no Windows Home Server in it, so we can talk about that. Microsoft also announced the dates for RTM of Windows 8. We can talk about that. User group, open sourcing Remote Potato, and there's a couple of other bits of news as well. And before we go to the first story, actually, just want to give a mention to TDL Mobile, released over the weekend. Jason Coombs had a really good interview with Ed Bott. I don't know if you got a chance to hear that yet, but it was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm about halfway through it, and it is brilliant. So, yeah, definitely recommending listen.
Yeah. Ed is always a great guest, and
Yes.
they did a really good thing because Ed was on sort of just over a year ago, I think a year and a half ago almost. They kind of picked through some of the stuff that Ed predicted then, and yeah, I got through the show, and I think Ed was pretty close.
He wasn't bad. Well, the bits I've heard so far, he certainly was pretty close on stuff. So yeah.
So it's always interesting to hear Ed, and that's a great show. So make sure you subscribe to that. It's got its own RSS feed, so you can subscribe to that. A link's on the front of the site, and give them some love. You can send them email to feedback@tdlmobile.com as well. And I think they are looking for guest hosts as well. So if you have an opinion, you want something that they talked about that you think they was wrong, or you should have said, or you'd like to get off your chest or anything like that, let them know, and you can be involved in that show, because it's a good show, that. And John and Jason are holding the fort at the moment, because Jose, having lost interest, has suddenly gained his interest, but he's gone from the show. Right. So some things I wanted to talk about. Let's first talk about the Windows 8 RTM dates. I don't know if you saw this post this week. In fact, it was this week, wasn't it? Yesterday?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, it was. Well, certainly it was
at the partner conference.
Yesterday. Yeah, definitely, because partner conference has only been on since the weekend. So yeah, it must have been fairly recent this week. So the partner conference is going on in Toronto, isn't it?
Yeah. So did you see what I think they did a blog post to go with it? So they've announced that RTM, which is released to manufacture, it's going to be the first week of August with general availability by the end of October. So what does that mean? What is the difference between RTM then and general availability?
One means it's actually going to the manufacturers, and the other one means you'll be able to get your hands on it. So,
right.
I mean, quite often in the past, RTMs haven't actually mean RTM, because there's certain in certain versions of Windows, bugs have been picked up on the RTM version, and that hasn't actually gone to manufacturer, and there's been a secondary RTM. I don't think that happened this time. I think they really did mean it when they said they're going to RTM. So when they release to manufacturer, it's basically going to all the people who are going to produce discs or whatever, or manufacturers to actually package with the PCs, and then we'll actually put it up for general sale or download when they get to that general release point.
So we may see it on MSDN and TechNet quite soon then, I suspect, because that usually comes quite quickly after RTM.
It does. You usually see the RTM version appearing on MSDN and TechNet. So yeah, that's where in the past things have been discovered and they've had to recall the RTM, which is obviously a big pain.
So we may get the final version sort of sometime in August to September.
Yeah.
And then I guess that means we're probably going to see devices in the shops by the end of October.
Well, you'd hope so. I mean, they've got to try and get that Black Friday in the States if they're going to make any money for over Christmas. So you've got to aim for that sort of target time.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it's obviously they're aiming for end of year. I don't know what devices we'll see, but whether we'll actually see any RT versions by that point, I'm not sure. But whether the Surface will be out.
Well, they did say that Surface was going to be out at the general availability.
Yeah, so that makes sense that the Surface, at least the Surface Pro version, would be out by then.
Yeah, well, the RT version, isn't it?
Yeah, that's confusing, isn't it? Because if the Pro version, if the actual version of Windows 8, the Pro is out, it seems odd that they can't release the Surface version.
Yeah, it does really, and I think that's due to well, there is a sort of rumor going on that they're waiting for a certain Intel chipset.
Well, that might be the case.
Yeah, so we'll see the RT version maybe in October. So, like you said, for the sort of Christmas sales, you will see the RT version, and the Pro version kind of missing that and hitting sort of January.
Yeah, that would kind of make sense.
And ironically, it would be a great time to launch it at CES, but Microsoft aren't there.
Yeah. For once, they actually got a consumer device, and they're not going to turn up.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll change their minds.
Yeah, maybe they will. Yeah, certainly the partners will be there, but the actual Surface ones.
Wouldn't be.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. I really want to get my hand on one of the Surface. Surface tablets. So I actually think the RT one will be quite nice. It's the future of Windows, isn't it? It's you can kind of see the desktop moving away to RT. I'd say one thing I found today. I got a new monitor today, and it was a nice one. It's HP one's 21 inch. I think it's 21 inch. It's quite big. So I've got it connected to my Windows 8 machine. And Metro really doesn't make the use out of it. It's very good, the screen, because I think it's running 1900 by 1080. Yeah. It's very good to have Windows. A really interesting concept. Microsoft should look at it. But you could run a browser window, a Twitter window, and something else window, and you can sort of tile them on the screen. And you've got so much screen real estate, plenty of space. But then when you switch into Metro apps, you kind of lose all that. And it's probably the first time I felt really that Metro app, the Metro UI, doesn't work as well on a large screen device.
Yeah.
Or a desktop device.
Yeah, and unless you sort of scale your Metro experience, but yeah, I certainly see what you're saying there.
When you're in the Metro, I just felt it wasn't making use of the screen real estate that you can do when you're in the desktop. But I suppose, Windows 8, you can use the desktop. That's what it's there for. So
yeah.
But it's interesting as we get closer to Windows 8, seeing the different scenarios on there. But it works fine. Rich says he's using a 26-inch, which is why I keep on installing Windows 8. But to be honest, once you're in Windows 8, you hit the desktop button, then you're just back to normal anyway, aren't you? Because you pin your apps and everything works the same way anyway.
So
I suppose you could say it's best of both worlds, rather than a negative.
Yeah.
And of course with the $40 upgrade as well, that should be. I think it'll see people upgrading. So looking forward to getting hold of that. So that's sometime in August. So maybe I come back on holidays and we're all back in work. Then I know you don't get any holidays, do you? You're not allowed holidays.
No holidays.
So that's coming. So that's coming pretty soon. Now the other thing that I wanted to mention that's quite perhaps an interesting point into some sort of trends that is going on at the moment. Before we just jump into that, Jonathan Hill says, and free media pack. Yeah, that free media pack for Media Center. I think that's the biggest deal for Media Center users is the $40 upgrade does include Media Center.
which is really good. And as we said last week, it makes if they'd announced that earlier, we wouldn't have all been panicking about it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so the other thing I wanted to mention was Remote Potato going open source. So just give us a background on what Remote Potato Server is.
So Remote Potato Server is the bit which you run on your media center, which allows all the funky Remote Potato clients to work, be it the ones for your mobile phone or for another PC. And Remote Potato basically allows you to look at guide data remotely, set recordings, view recordings potentially on some things. So a very useful app to do that. And the server part of it is the bit which has been runs on Windows, runs on the media center to actually provide that information.
So I got an email from Carl Partridge, the developer, kind of a press release saying that Remote Potato is going open source, or he actually said it launches open source initiative. But the gist of it is it's going open source, and he's opening it up to other developers, and the source code's on GitHub. So
yeah.
What's your take on that? Is this a good thing or is this a bad thing?
I think it's one of these things where you can see why he's done it, because going forward there is going to be less demand for Media Center, unfortunately, and actually funding maintaining something like that is going to be quite tricky. Whereas if you can crowdsource the development, obviously open source does that. It allows you to have more than one developer working on it, more than one person supporting it potentially. It gives you a lot of flexibility that way, and there have been a lot of people coming to do this. A lot of people want to help him out with certain ideas. They've had ideas on how to use it to improve it, and I think you may see a few new things come into the whole Remote Potato world. I mean, I'd love to see an integrated Remote Potato and DVB Logic stuff. That'd be really my killer app. So I think some of those things could come about because of this.
Yeah, so I suppose I mean the main thing, Remote Potato is a standalone application, but like you said, there's a lot of all the iPhone and Android phone and Windows phone clients tend to use the back end rather than reinventing the wheel. So I suppose it gives those developers a chance to get into the source code if they want to add features or just see how something works. I mean, when you see the source code, you can get a better understanding of how you should use things.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, and that's I think the way we'll certainly see it go.
Yeah, I just wondered whether it was kind of him just getting sort of maybe fed up with it or fed up with the situation of Media Center or something like that. But yeah, I can see that it's definitely get the input from other people is definitely a good way forward.
Yeah. I think. I mean, there may well be some of that getting fed up with the scenario as well. You certainly could see that. But yeah, I think it's a very good. Potentially, it has some strong advantages to keeping that what is a brilliant product going.
Yeah, because it is actually brilliant. It is really good. I mean, if you use any of the phone apps, then they virtually all use Remote Potato as a backend server. I mean, it really is a kind of the missing element from Media Center.
Yeah, indeed, and you'd hate to see something like that go away because it's a commercial app and can't be supported. The commercial company can't afford to support it anymore.
Yeah, and I suppose in that way, what Carl's done is ensure that even if he does want to move away from the project, it's still out there, it's still alive, and other people can take hold of it.
Yeah.
And he doesn't say that he's moving away from it. So it's a nice way for him.
Yeah, I think it's a very wise move.
And if you've never used Remote Potato, definitely check that out. And there's loads of clients out there that take advantage of the mobiles and the browsing and PC to PC as well. I think, aren't there? There's some other sort of pooled guide data type applications that use that.
Yes, yeah, there are.
Yeah, so I'll link for that in the show notes. And if any of the listeners are developers and get involved, let us know what you're getting up to on that. Now you did a post this week about home server. We're going to be talking home server shortly, I think, depending on whether Andrew joins us or not. But you got a nice little tip that you posted this week.
Yeah, it's something I keep using it, and I thought, I don't wonder how many people actually know about this tip, which is basically, I don't know if you know, with home server, obviously with the drive pooling, your physical drives are all underneath the drive pool, and it actually is quite a tricky thing to check them for errors. Normally on any other PC, you just do a check disk, scan disk to actually check that if you've got a disk error or whatever. And I've found quite a few recently where I've been asked by people to where they've got problems with backups on home server, and one of the solutions for that seems to be to do a check disk of the individual disks under the drive pool, but obviously that's a bit tricky. And the post I've sent up is a link to something which was posted on one of the Microsoft sites, and it's a really good trick. It's a little batch file which basically goes through all the sort of the virtual links to the physical drives, and actually does a scan disk on all of them, or check disk on all of them, and usually fixes issues. It's fairly non-destructive. I've only ever had it come up once where it's actually said that the drive is no longer usable after doing it, but that drive would have failed anyway. So I think it's a really useful little tip.
Yeah, it is, and I've seen quite a lot of people linking to that this week, and yeah, so obviously that you've hit something that people are looking for.
Yeah, and it's been out there for ages. I think it's just been quite well hidden, and real credit to the guy who actually did it. I'm just trying to dig out his name as I speak, so I can give him proper credit. But it's a really useful tip. It's not something I've actually come up with myself. It's just something I've known about for a while, and just thought it was a good idea to make sure people actually did know about it. It's Ken Warren, who's been very active on the WHS forums over the years, and it's one of the social Microsoft forums this was actually posted in originally.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good link there.
Yep.
Now, we had something on the chat room. There's a discussion on there talking about booting straight into Media Center in Windows 8. And I think we've had this question before, but I'm not aware of anybody that's sort of got around that. I don't know of any hacks to do that either.
No, I haven't. I mean, what I've done on mine is literally just have it as the first tile on the Metro and just click OK on it, which works. But just about. But yeah, it's a problem. It's an issue, and I certainly would want to make sure that worked somehow.
So I'm still not undecided on whether I'd sort of upgrade my Media Center machine to Windows 8. I probably wouldn't have done before the $40 option. Now that that's there, I'm in sort of two minds really. I suppose I'm not going to gain anything from doing it really, but maybe so we get some Metro apps. I was thinking like Netflix maybe, or LoveFilm, or some of those guys, once they get nice Metro apps, there will be a reason to sort of upgrade your
I've been thinking about it. One thing I would say, having used Windows 8 quite in anger when I was at TechEd for some of the production stuff we were doing there, because obviously we demoed new technologies when we were there. It actually is noticeably quicker on certain things, and that may be an advantage. One thing I'm not sure whether it will have an effect is the USB device drivers, which seem to have been really tightened up. And whether that's going to affect with USB tuners or anything like that, or reliability on those sort of things. I was thinking something like the Hauppauge DVR things, whether they would actually benefit from having that better USB handling, and also just a general reliability is better. Although there was a patch put out, which if you're running updates on your Windows 8, you should have got by now, because there was actually an issue with multimedia stuff playing on Windows 8. I think it was I don't remember which KB it was. It's 272.113. To do the Andrews this week. He always be able to quote those off the top of his head. And it's hotfix available, which sorts out an issue where if the I'm trying to think how they actually describe it. The system may randomly stop responding when you work on multimedia or communication activities, which is probably most of the things I would do on a PC.
Yeah, sounds like it. Yeah.
They basically, but they've put a fix out for it. So yeah, that should hopefully be resolved now.
As we keep saying, I'm looking forward to trying Windows 8, but I think it's going to be the Metro apps that really make the experience.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just Windows 7.
It's good. It is Windows 7. Well, it's Windows 7 plus a bit. I mean, the performance is definitely better in a lot of cases, and so boot up times and things like that are definitely better. But I do think that there are certainly some usability issues, and I think that the not being able to start up apps generally in the desktop is an usability issue. And sort of things like servers and services and things. I haven't really worked out how you do that in Windows 8 yet, so I'm keep intending to play a bit more with.
I suppose you can install services, can't you? The traditional Windows services, but you can't install it through the Metro App Store.
Yeah.
All the Windows.
Someone did suggest using the task scheduler. I'm not sure if that would actually work to be able to do something on startup through that.
Yeah, like a delayed 5 minutes after or 2
startup,
minutes after booting up. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, but
I think your solution, having it as the first tile, I think is probably as good as you're probably going to get.
Yeah, but I accept that's not going to be for everybody. I mean, it's still going to be annoying if you're trying to get to the TV and you just want to quickly get onto live TV. And a lot of people have been set up just to boot straight into that, and you're not going to be able to do that as quickly. So it's going to be a pain if you have to reboot the PC. So the trick is just not to reboot the PC, because they go into sleep and come out of sleep so damn quick on Windows 8. You might as well not bother rebooting it.
Yeah. I mean, I never ever shut 10 machines down unless I have to.
Yeah, and I think that it's actually going to become less of a thing you do, I think, with Windows 8, because they do seem to run a lot longer than any other Windows version I've had without having to need a reboot.
I always found Windows 7 pretty good. I very rarely reboot.
Yeah, I think just Windows 8 is just, again, a factor on from that. I still do have to reboot Windows 7 occasionally, especially if I'm doing development stuff, because that's Microsoft's development tools are the worst things ever for causing me to need to reboot. But less on Windows 8.
Yeah, and I suppose when you get to like the RT as well, that's going to the RT versions that are kind of always on devices.
Yeah.
And Rich says Windows 8 embedded, perhaps. Well, they've announced the Windows 8 embedded. I know we've talked about it, but I don't think there is no media center SKU as such. And in fact, I think I tried this. There was an embedded, and there was no sort of set-top box template like there was previously.
Doesn't say that there won't be eventually. It's just it's not there at the moment. It wouldn't be difficult to add that into that SKU.
Yeah. So perhaps there will be an option in that for the future, and it's Windows 8 and especially the startup and the Metro and stuff. It's a kind of almost like a 1.0 again, isn't it? So maybe these things will get added back in at certain points.
Yeah. If you look at what's happening with Windows Phone and Windows Phone 8, then you can get an idea what might happen with Metro 2.
I suppose what they are doing though is making sure there's a consistent experience across Windows. When you start up, you get the start screen, end of story. No OEMs or anybody else can mess about with it. You just got that consistent use.
Yeah.
And Jonathan says but the boot time is so quick. Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing. Windows 8 does boot very quickly. Still not as quick as waking from sleep, but definitely does boot up quickly.
And booting from Hybrid or from Hibernate is really, really quick.
Yes, they've definitely improved that.
Yeah, and so that's another aspect of why you may not want to do a full reboot.
Yeah, I see a full reboot even with Windows 7. I only ever do it when you've got to install updates, basically. Or something's gone wrong. Normally, I always use the Sleep or Hibernate if it's on a laptop or whatever. It's the same I do it with my Mac here. I never shut it down. It's only ever I just shut the lid and then open the lid, and that's it. You've kind of got used to that. It's like an iPad, isn't it? You don't turn off an iPad unless you're doing something like traveling and you make it off for a while or whatever.
Yeah, true.
So that's anyway. So we were talking. So Windows, back on Windows 8 there. Right, now the next thing I wanted to talk about now, I've just got word from Andrew. He is putting in those rehearsal times at a secret location dance studio. The problem, it's a spandex related injury that he's got, I think, but that's keeping him there. But I just don't think he can get out of the costuming time to get on the show this week. So we may as well talk Windows Home Server then, or in fact, let's talk Windows Server
Oh
2012.
yes. So 2012.
And yeah, I think this is one of those moments where Microsoft announced the SKUs. And we went, okay, there's that version, right? Okay, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. So, give us the background on this. Microsoft last week announced the lineup of the 2012 versions of Windows Server. And what additions did they say there'd be?
Well, what they didn't say there would be home server or small business server. So those have gone and replaced with an essentials SKU. I can't remember all the SKUs they announced, to be honest, off the top of my head, but that one, that's the sort of the significant one from my point of view. And obviously that's a lot more expensive than the home server SKU ever was. So four to £600 I've been told may be the price.
So so Rich has put some of us are planning to eat later. Enough of the spandex.
Okay, no more spandex.
No more spandex. We won't mention spandex again. So the additions that they mentioned were standard, data center, essential, and foundation. So I think if I got this right, the foundation version is an OEM product. So I think you'll see that on sort of storage essentials and sort of storage units and sort of things like that.
And in some ways, that actually is a home server ish replacement for those sort of criteria, although it's got a lot less stuff in it.
Yeah. Then there's the essentials version, which is the new sort of standard version. But it's kind of a cut down version, isn't it?
It is, and that's probably targeted the market where you've got that low end business market, small business server, home server business market, but a bit more pricey.
And I think it I'm just going to bring up the notes now, but I think it has quite a lot of features in there, doesn't it? But right, okay, so I've got the exact details here. Right, so we've got the base level is the foundation, which is OEM only, 15 user account limit, general purpose with no virtualization, and economic general purpose server. So this is going to be a pre-bundled device.
Yes, yeah. But if you think about it, that's actually what home server is supposed to be.
Yes, yeah, you're right.
So potentially this one could be a home server edition equivalent.
And then you've got essentials, which is for small business environments. No virtualization, cloud-based services, pre-configured, 25 user account limit, $425, considerably more expensive than home server.
Yeah.
But it does include, I think, the sort of the simplified interface that Windows Home Server sort of started with, really, that console. And then you've got the standard edition, which is just the standard Windows Server and 2 instances virtual server, but it's sort of the traditional licensing model based on processor and CALs at $882. And then the one that you want in your home, the data center one, $4,809.
Some of us might want that in our homes.
Yeah. I'm sure some of the people listening are planning to do exactly that, but maybe from the MSDN and TechNet, and certainly not going to go out and buy a retail. And that's the full version of service. So, like you said, the issue though is there's no small business server and there's no Windows Home Server. So quite a few people are saying, well, I think Windows 8 is probably going to be the replacement because it does have some of the features and functionalities. But so, I mean, Andrew's talked about this plenty of times in the past, hasn't he? That the home server never really made any money for Microsoft. It was a very low price point. They sold them to a few OEMs. It was never really the big money spinner, and that's so that's sort of gone now. So it's no surprise really then.
Not so surprised. I think the interesting thing is the death of small business server as such, because that was always that's a brand which has got quite cachet in with small businesses. So obviously that they've decided to go away from that and use the essentials branding, which is, I mean, it's basically a very similar product, but obviously pricing is somewhat different. So I don't think this is amazingly big news. I think we all had an inkling this was coming, and it's not ended life for Windows Home Server yet. It's got a couple of years to go, so there's still going to be out there. I mean, there's some. Is it 2017? I saw something for
2025.
25. Even more amazingly for OEMs can carry on selling it,
Yeah.
which is pretty. I mean, will there be Windows in 2025? That's to be asked.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not surprising, is it?
No, it's not surprising. It's not surprising that this has happened. I, I think we could have all predicted this after the 2011 release and the lack of people actually taking it up.
But I think that there's it's interesting sort of the timeline of a product because it launched at CES I actually do remember there being some product launch. It may have been just before 2007 CES, but I remember talking to the home server team there and to some fanfare, and they had a little book showing why have you got a server in my home, which I've still got the book somewhere, the little cartoon.
There'll be collector's issues.
Yeah, and then there was the data corruption bug that hit that really did knock it back quite a bit, I think, really.
Yeah, I suspect if that hadn't happened, we might have seen a lot more home servers out there. But I did have quite a big impact on it. I mean, if you've got something which is not reliable, people aren't going to buy it, and unfortunately, some of that might stay stuck for a while. I mean, those of us who use them obviously love having our home servers and find them very useful. And couldn't live without for backup. And I obviously need to look at that in the future as to how I go that way. But yeah, I mean, it didn't get the traction it should have got.
No, and I was always kind of sad because I know I've kind of alluded to in the past. I've seen some suggestions and of what could have been for Windows Home Server, and it would have been a great product and it would have fitted in so well with Media Center. But that whole vision of PCs and a server in a home Microsoft have moved away from that, and I think people are almost, apart from perhaps a few enthusiasts like us, are moving away from that as well.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, there was a whole thing about whether people are moving to the cloud, and I don't really see that. People I talk to in who've got big media collections don't want to put them on the cloud because they just don't trust it. So it's well, I suppose that might be an enthusiast market again, but and I guess that the average consumer is quite used to having iTunes and having all the stuff on that and downloading it when they do. So yes, so maybe the world is moving away.
Yeah. So I think the simplified SKUs is quite nice, but I just think it's a shame that product line has gone. But I can totally see why. And in fact, Microsoft, in their FAQ, they said, "Will there be a next version of Windows Home Server?" They say, "No, Windows Home Server has seen great success in the small office, home office environments." And among the tech enthusiast community, and for this reason, Microsoft is combining the features that were previously only found in Windows Home Server, such as support for DLNA compliant devices and media streaming, into Windows Server 2012 Essentials.
Yeah.
So the DLNA side of it maybe in there, but it was the backup thing that I never really used the DLNA. I tend to use the backup side of it much more than anything else.
Yeah, and it'd be interesting to see how backup's been implemented on these SKUs. And it's whether, I mean, the core one seems like that might actually be a good answer for someone who just wants to use it for backup. And I can see someone like Buffalo maybe rolling out a machine like that because they've done it they've used Storage Essentials previously, which I actually quite liked when I played with Storage Essentials on one of their devices. So I can see that coming. There's some home devices coming with that on.
Yeah.
If it's a reasonably cheap SKU. I mean, pricing is always a matter on these things.
I mean, Rich says, see if the connector installs on Windows 8. It does actually. I've installed it. So I've got a Windows 8 machine connected to a home server, but I think I haven't tried it in the restores or anything like that, because I believe there's some sort of under the cover differences. But I like the idea of having a server that's tucked away, that's doing the backup of all my things. The hard disk goes, and I know I can restore it. Without home server, I'm going to have to look at alternative solutions, like you said.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, I don't know what I would choose. I mean, like you said about the cloud, you've got SkyDrive and things like that. And I think someone mentioned it in the chat room, like Rich said. But it's all great having SkyDrive, but that's not backing up my hard drive if the hard drive crashes.
No.
It may back up some of my pictures and files and things like that, but it still means I've got to then kind of restore things around. And so I've not really looked at another solution, and I was actually having a look today to see whether it's something I could do with Windows Server 2012, and maybe there is some way of doing it. So that's something we're going to have to look into. And also, as far as the media streaming concerned, Jonathan mentions is using DLNA from home server to go to the Raspberry Pi. Well, you could also use the Raspberry Pi as a DLNA server if you connect an external hard drive to it, or a SD card or whatever with media on. So you can do all this stuff. There's just not a simple out of the box solution, but I guess there's just not enough mainstream interest in trying to do it.
Yeah, that's basically where it is.
I know you've tried a few of the little NAS boxes, haven't you, that are on the market, and if they do the job, then that's...
Yeah, people will go that way if they do the job. I've never found anything on the NAS market which is actually, from my mind, match the simplicity of Windows Home Server. So that's a thing. I mean, I know some things like the Drobo and that have got that, but there's a price premium on them. So and I've never really found any of the Linux-based boxes, to my mind, work as simply as Home Server does it in a Windows environment. But it was obviously targeted for that very purpose. And Windows Home Server version 1 was a fantastic product. If it hadn't had the issues with the drive extender and the data loss bug, I think it would have taken off quite big time in the home. But that reliability issue, it just tarred it, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think so. And I said all these solutions that there's lots of big conversations going on in the chat room. They're all piecemeal solutions, aren't there? There isn't just one simple idea. I mean, maybe that's something that Microsoft in the future will as bandwidths increase and storage gets cheaper, maybe they'll offer a complete PC backup solution, a bit like they do with the I can't remember what it's called now. There's a business one, isn't there? A package you pay so much a month, and I think it offers backup and that kind of stuff. So maybe there'll be just a complete backup solution at some point, or maybe PCs will be so on Windows, you've got your Metro apps, everything else will be so cloud-based that swapping a hard drive doesn't mean anything. It's a bit like when you fire up Google Chrome on a new machine and you sign in with your Google ID, it copies your tabs or it can sync your tabs and your shortcuts and your passwords, everything. So maybe we're going to be less dependent on local storage and more on cloud storage, so it becomes less of an issue.
Yes, but then again, you only have to look at what happened on day one of Microsoft TechEd when we had no internet connection, and everybody relying on cloud service. Just how am I going to do my demos this week? How am I going to show what I've got to show?
Yeah, good point.
Once you're in a disconnected world, you've had it.
That's Andrew's other side, isn't it? Disconnected world. But so it's well, hopefully Andrew will make it back from his dance class next week. But I think these it's nothing new we're talking about here. So there's lots of opportunities to use Windows 8, maybe Linux and other boxes to try and replicate this functionality. But certainly, I can't see many enthusiasts maybe non-enthusiasts going buying servers now to stick in the home. Not when your starting price is $425, where previously it was £100 for the
less than that.
Yeah, for the OEM version. Yeah.
But I mean, it'd be interesting to see how much the Core one comes in at, and whether that's the answer for that.
Yeah, the Foundation. Yeah.
Foundation one. Yeah. So.
Yeah, because then the OEMs could add their own layers on top of that and functionality as well.
Yeah. And I certainly could see that Foundation one being basis for quite a few of those little boxes.
Okay, well, we'll see, and we'll try and get Andrew's thoughts next week. So, but a little passing of it, end of an era.
Yeah, it is sad, but not unexpected.
Yeah. Now, if you want to see a view of some of the things coming in the future, then you should get to our user group in 22nd of September. And we've added a bit of jam to it.
Oh, yeah. We all like a bit of jam.
Yeah. So last week, as I mentioned on the show last week, I attended the Preston Raspberry Jam session, which is this kind of effectively open source. I think Alan Donahue described it as open source meetings for Raspberry Pi.
Yeah.
So I spoke to Alan, and we've added a bit of Raspberry Jam to our session in Wigan. So when it comes to our user group, we'll also be having a bit of Raspberry Jam, which effectively just means we're just going to have Raspberry Pis there. You can bring an SD card and show something off if you want, or you can see what other people are doing on it. So I think it's going to be a good fun day, that.
Yeah, It's going to be a fun day, regardless if you want to jam or not. It's still going to be a fun day, but it's going to make it just that little bit more fun.
Yeah. So, but I'm not sure anybody will have a Windows Home Server jam. I don't think that's coming.
Maybe we'll have a Windows 8 jam.
Well, exactly. But this is exactly what we do want, isn't it? So if you've come up with we're talking about backups and streaming solutions or whatever. If you've come up with a really good way of doing it, then show it off. Either bring us a demo or send me something or whatever you can do. Then bring it up and let's show it off. Let's use the event to show stuff off.
Yeah, definitely.
Rich says in the chat room that he's just bid on the 99p home server you mentioned.
Good.
I'm going to outbid you now, Rich. Pound and a penny. I've already got 3 down here, so I could do with another. I don't know what I'm going to do with my main one now, whether to keep it running or whether to stick, when the 2012 comes on MSDN, whether to try and build something on there. I'm not sure yet. If it's kind of thing with home server, though, it's working and I'm just going to leave it running.
Yeah, I must think about home server. It just keep working, and it probably will keep working for a few more years yet.
Yeah. And Jonathan says, have you seen the voice-controlled robot on the Raspberry Pi? I did see the post. That looks quite interesting. I'd love to see somebody bring something like that. But, I'd love to get some sort of things connected to Raspberry Pi. That's my next thing I want to look at. Get an iRobot or one of those, the Roombas or something like that, and have it controlled by a Raspberry Pi. Something interesting like that.
Yeah, you can probably do that with the older Roombas because they've got some interface ports on them. So
have they?
There's been some Arduino control projects for those. So I can imagine you could sort of put a Raspberry Pi on Arduino and have fun.
Yeah, that's interesting. And if anybody's got an Arduino as well, bring one of them along to the user group because they're quite interesting when you connect them together. I maybe have to get one of them and give that a try. Now, another post I wanted to mention, I'm just going to put this up on the side. I've not had a chance to put it up yet. There's another post on the Building Windows 8 blog. This is not the shortest of posts. Well, I'll tell you, I started scrolling when I said that, and I'm just finished scrolling now. So there's a few thousand words on there. But it's about protecting user files with file history, which is almost what we're talking, segues into what we're talking about with sort of backups and things like that, with where if you maybe change a file or break a file or do something wrong, it was there in Windows 7, but I don't think a lot of people used it, but you can have a look at the history of a file and get the previous version of it. I think it was called previous versions, in fact, in Windows 7.
It certainly was. I
have used it a few times, actually, when users have accidentally broken their Excel file. or just say, it wasn't me, but of course it wasn't. We know it wasn't you that broke it, obviously. No one else has touched the file, but never mind, it wasn't you. And I've gone back through previous versions, but I think in Windows 8, they've called it now file history.
Yeah.
And on the post, they detail how to set it up, how to actually restore the files, which is probably more important. Everybody sees how to back up these files, but you don't often test the restoration of the files.
Yeah.
So I'll include a link for that in the show notes. But I suppose that's one example of where the technology is moving on and making something like Home Server less critical. Because in the past, if you didn't have that and somebody broke a file, you overwritten the file, you did something wrong, you could then go to your Home Server. Now you can actually do it from the Windows 8 machine.
Yeah.
It's very much like, I think, Apple have the time machine on Mac OS, which is like a funky graphic version of what previous versions was already doing, but it looks all cool and 3D.
I was going to say, you've always got to have a bit of 3D, but obviously with Metro, you haven't.
No, everything is 2D.
It's all flat.
Just a couple of other things we can. I just want to mention before we finish off tonight. I posted up a couple more videos and some pictures from my trip to Ford. So there's a video of me trying to hold on while I get driven around the track in the.
Looking somewhat terrified at points on that video.
Well, the one where I'm driving, I look really serious, but honestly, I was enjoying it. I was really enjoying it, but obviously, I'm very serious on it.
Yeah.
The one where the professional was driving, I really enjoyed, but I was more hanging on than anything else, and trying not to drop my camera. That was good fun though, and so I posted up a couple of the pictures this week as well, so you can see the Henry Ford Museum that I went to with Andrew actually, and we had a quick wander around there, and that's a nice museum they've got there actually, and some interesting kit in there. And sorry for non-motor racing fans, but motor racing fans will be pleased to know that the Lotus. I forget the model number now, but the first the Lotus IndyCar winning IndyCar anyway, the one that Jim Clark drove this was one of the first. I think it was the second year that they entered the rear engine one. It's been recently restored, and I think it had been sort of left in the corner somewhere gathering dust, and then they've recently restored it, and Dario Franchitti drove it around the Indy 500 last year. So beautiful looking IndyCar, but they've also got things like presidential cars and things like that, and some good old NASCARs.
Oh, sounds fun.
Yeah. But it's a nice museum. So if you are in that area and you look, they've got some interesting stuff. They got some planes and sort of aviation history in there as well. And as well as I've also posted some of the pictures from the R&D labs and some of the stuff and some of the pictures from the test track as well. I still want one of those Mustangs. Okay, so I think that was all the topics I had for this week. I'll just let you know as well that I think we talked about Good Player.
Oh yeah, that's been upgraded, hasn't it?
Yeah, that's been upgraded. I do really like that app. That's my new favourite media app, I think. Because since VLC disappeared off the iPad, that's actually I found it's really good, and it plays quite a good variety of formats. So when I've been travelling, I've found that pretty handy. If you've got content in various formats other than just the sort of the iTunes stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we mentioned last week as well, but Sky Go for Android has been updated to include Anytime Plus content,
which is good.
Yeah.
It's still not available on all Android tablets.
No, very few actually.
Yeah.
They did say the next one to come is the Galaxy Note, so I'd give that a try. But with the 2 device limit, then that's not really. I can't really just try it. Which is a shame. But anyway, it's good to see that Sky even if it's a bit slowly, they keep going with that one.
Yeah.
So I think that's everything I had to talk about this week. There's a great discussion in there in the chat room. I'm going to go now.
I think the chat room is probably more exciting than the show this week.
Yeah. It was 4th of July, wasn't it, last week? So it was fairly quiet on the news, but still Microsoft stuck in the RTM stuff. And killing home server, of course.
Yeah, well, if I snag it and enjoying a public holiday, that sounds about right.
I'm hoping my Galaxy Nexus 7 should be here. I think it was promised next week or the week after anyway, so I'm hoping it's here for the next show.
That'll be good.
I want to have a play with that. It'd be nice to see Jelly Bean running.
Yeah.
Prefer that code name than ice cream sandwich anyway. Oh, never liked that one. So, where's the best place to get hold of you and find where you're up to then?
I'm always on the Digital Lifestyle posting things. I've got quite a few reviews which I'm finishing off at the moment, so they should all appear and go for the next few days. And you can always follow me on Twitter at Gary with 2 R's WMA.
And Andrew is Edney. And I'll include a link for his stuff in the show notes. So thanks everybody in the chat room. It was very interesting discussions going on there. So nice to see that going on. So don't forget to get your tickets for the user group, September 22nd. We're hoping to see everybody there. I'm really looking forward to that. We must find some way of disrupting whatever Andrew's doing though with food.
Pizzas,
yeah. Something like that.
Someone needs to write a pizza ordering app, which they just deliver to Andrew every 5 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be ideal. So thanks everybody for listening or watching if you're watching the video version. And thanks for the chat room, and we'll see you next week.
Okay, take care.
Okay, good stuff. I'll stop the stream. So thanks to everybody in the chat room. Spandex Pizza. Now, you asked us not to mention it. He mentioned it. It wasn't us.
I know. Kids